Thank you for joining me in our Strategies of Success WebEx series today. This WebEx is entitled Management Concerns, Disgruntled Employees, Employee Conflict, and Termination of Employment. My name is Carolyn Parker, and I'll be presenting the information on this topic today. Should you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to submit them as you participate, and I'll answer them at the end of the presentation. The information provided in this training module is not intended to be legal or medical advice. It is recommended that participants not rely on this general guide in structuring or analyzing individual transactions, but that professional advice be sought in connection with any such transaction. Nothing herein is the official position of Allegiant Creighton Health. While different companies in varying industries tend to battle diverse and unique challenges, one issue remains constant and prevalent across the board: bad employees and having to manage them. When you add a weak economy to the mix, the situation becomes even more difficult. The easy answer to dealing with bad performers in a poor economy is to treat them the same way you would treat the economy. But like in most things in life, knowing the answer is not nearly as difficult as doing it. If solving the problem were this easy, companies wouldn't even have bad performers. In fact, dealing with these bad performers is one of the greatest struggles of most leaders. At a poor economy, it makes it much more difficult and overwhelming than ever before, and making the right decisions become more vital to the organization's success. Within this WebEx, I'm going to be focusing on three specific areas of management: disgruntled employees, employee conflict, and termination of employment. Grumpy coworkers are a drain on your practice. Today's office climate is volatile, and people become anxious in times of uncertainty. The result is that some of your employees are going to become testy, and they're going to start rumors or start complaining in a way that will demotivate your entire team. Unhappy and unproductive employees can threaten your clinic, no matter what role they play in the organization. Here are some tips to disarm these toxic naysayers before they can do irreparable damage to your team's productivity and ultimately your practice. Don't give problem workers power. Isolate problem employees by creating a single line of managerial command so that disgruntled workers' complaints and concerns can only go to one manager, which means they'll have minimal impact on overall productivity. Keep telling the positive story. Remind everyone about the organization's mission, its accomplishments, and the goals so that others don't get mired with the negative minutiae. But make sure that they're focusing that the patient should come first. Don't get angry. Keep your tone calm and professional, and don't start retelling stories or gossiping. Recent research shows that those who tell tales are usually the ones that end up looking the worst. Don't restate complaints for the other party. If you have to address a negative issue or concern, use simple statements and acknowledge that a problem has risen. Don't lend credibility to the complaints by providing information that may or may not be an issue for other workers. Never assume that being right is enough. Make sure that you have all the facts for the court, but make sure that you don't have to carry the court of public opinion. You need to operate from your convictions and demonstrate good judgment, authenticity, and consistency. Use small gestures. You may not be completely in the right, and a slight concession can demonstrate empathy and understanding. Offering a disgruntled worker in a small win can make it easier to solve a larger conflict, but make sure that you set some clear limits. Nip rumors in the bud. Don't let rumors and false statements stand without a response. Be forthright, accurate, and if you can, memorable in your response so that you can put forward an accurate counter story without repeating the original rumor. Make sure to keep your management team well informed. Get their support and give them facts and details. It is best usually the physicians want you to take care of everything. They don't want to be involved in staff relations, and that's why they hired you. But there are some times that the providers do need to make sure that they know what's going on, so it's not pitting the employee against you in a he said, she said, or she said scenario. Keep moving forward. Don't let a problem employee or rumors disrupt your operations if you can avoid it. Announce plans and keep everyone focused on a positive future. When you have toxic employees undermining operations, it's challenging to keep your eye on long-term objectives, but the best defense against cranky workers is maintaining a positive attitude and a clear vision and sharing that vision. Sometimes, with an employee conflict, people just don't get along. If you're managing employees in a small business, such as in a clinic setting, you're bound to find yourself dealing with a personality clash at some point or another, whether it's something as simple as a staff member playing music too loudly, or something as nasty as rumors being spread, or even the threat of physical altercation. No matter what the situation is, there are a number of ways to handle it gracefully. So now I'm going to discuss some steps when you have to manage workplace conflict. First of all, you don't want to avoid conflict hoping it'll go away. Trust me, it won't. Even if the conflict appears to have been superficially put to rest, it will rear its ugly head whenever the stress increases or a new disagreement occurs. An unresolved conflict or interpersonal disagreement festers just under the surface in your work environment. It bubbles to the surface whenever enabled, and it's always at the worst possible moment. This too shall pass is not an option in this case ever. So with conflict resolution, you want to meet with the parties involved together, not individually, but make sure you bring them together. Ask for specific actions, what each one would like to see as the resolution. Discuss the situation that's happening and commit to a resolution. Don't choose sides by any means. Make sure that you are an impartial listener and reassure them that you will work with them to get this issue resolved. When you're meeting with the people involved in the problem in a private room, set aside an hour or two to focus on the situation. Then listen to both sides of the argument, asking both sides to state their problems in a no-fault terms like, I feel like I'm left out, instead of, you always leave me out. Be careful not to state any bias towards either party while determining the facts of the situation. This should be a discussion so that all parties are clear about the disagreement and conflicting views. Intervene if either employee attacks the other employee, because that is just not acceptable. Ask each participant to describe specific actions they'd like to see the other party take that would resolve the differences. 3 or 4 suggestions would work well. Sometimes you, as a supervisor, must own some of the responsibility for helping the employees solve their conflict. Always ask, what about the work situation is causing these staff members to fail? Come up with clear steps to solve the problem. Invite each employee involved into the conflict to come up with a series of proactive steps that they both and their fellow coworkers can take to end the problem. For example, if one employee is annoyed when his coworker plays the music too loudly, the solution could be as simple as a pair of headphones. If the situation is more involved or emotional, though, you may consider bringing in a professional mediator to help resolve the conflict. Make sure to schedule a follow-up meeting between the involved parties after a period of several weeks to determine how well the issue has been resolved. Additionally, keep a close eye on the situation yourself and get ready to have a private discussion with one of the employees if they're not living up to their end of the deal. Depending upon how serious the offense is, you may need to give an ultimatum that the offending employee will lose their job if they don't take the necessary steps to resolve the problem. You need to make sure that you identify it when the issue is really harassment. Many workplace conflicts stem from a simple misunderstanding or personality clash, but in some cases, the issue might be far more serious. If one employee is insulting the other on the basis of gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or other personal issue, this is a matter of harassment, and it must be taken seriously. In many cases, This will mean firing the harassing party. If you believe that one of your employees is harassing the other, consult with an employment lawyer immediately to find out the next best steps to take. Focus on building a united team. Once you've resolved your workplace conflict, help ensure that new problems don't arise by working to bring your staff closer together. Host occasional potluck dinners, shut down the office for a paid afternoon of bowling or mini golf every once in a while, or you might want to consider trying icebreakers with team building games at the office. These activities will give your staff the opportunity to warm up and get to know one another outside the workplace, which will go a long way to getting all of your employees to like or at least tolerate one another. Now we're going to talk about termination of employment. Employees land in hot water for many reasons, some inexplicable to employers, some predictable. But termination is a serious action that generally is the accumulation of a series of progressive disciplinary actions. Termination occurs when an employer or an employee ends an employee's employment with a particular employer. Termination can be voluntary or involuntary depending upon the circumstances. In a voluntary termination, an employee resigns from his or her job. Resignations occur for a variety of reasons. Could be because of a new job, a spouse's acceptance of a new job in a distant location, going back to school, and retirement. With valued employees, employers expend efforts on employee retention to limit preventable turnover. In an involuntary termination, an employer fires the employee or removes the employee from their job. An involuntary termination is usually the result of an employer's dissatisfaction with an employee or an economic downturn. Reasons for involuntary termination range from poor performance to attendance problems to violent behavior. Involuntary termination, such as a layoff, can also occur because an employer lacks the financial resources to continue the employment relationship. Other events that trigger termination can include mergers and acquisitions, a company relocation, and job redundancy. If you believe that the employee is unwilling or unable to improve their performance, you still want to start a progressive disciplinary action. Again, documentation is critical so that you have a record of the steps that you took in the process. With performance problems, the employer most often has tried less final solutions such as coaching from the employee's supervisor to help the employee improve. Escalating progressive discipline in the case of performance issues such as absenteeism is also the norm. In a final effort to help an employee improve his or her performance, many employers rely on a performance improvement plan. Used appropriately, the performance improvement plan is the employer's last-ditch attempt to communicate the needed performance improvements to the employee. But the performance improvement plan and any escalating disciplinary measures also provide documentation that demonstrates that the employer made an effort to salvage the employment relationship. So here I just put some suggested performance improvement plan items. The performance improvement plan is designed to facilitate constructive discussion between a staff member and his or her supervisor and clarify the work performance to be performed. The supervisor should review the following 6 items with the employee when using the document. You want to state the performance to be improved. Make sure that you're specific and you cite examples. State the level of work performance expectation and that it must be performed on a consistent basis. Identify and specify the support and resources you'll provide to assist the employee. Communicate your plan for providing feedback to the employee. Specify meeting times with whom and how often. Make sure you specify the measurements you'll consider in evaluating the progress. Specify possible consequences if the performance standards are not met. And finally, provide sources of additional information such as the employee handbook. Following the steps in a progressive discipline should be consistent for each employee you fire. Once you decide on this path, which you don't need to do unless an event that's out of the ordinary occurs. You may also provide the employee with any number of options starting at the performance improvement plan step. You want to discuss voluntary termination. You can ask the employee if they want to voluntarily quit rather than participate in disciplinary action. You can agree on a timeline by which the employee will have given notice. This may, however, interfere with the individual's ability to collect unemployment. Make sure to talk to an attorney to understand all of your options. In cases where you provide any severance pay, as an example, you'll want to ask the departing employee to sign a release that is different for employees older than 40 and under the age of 40. Eventually, you'll want to schedule and hold the employment termination meeting. I wouldn't give the employee more than a few minutes notice before the meeting. You will cause the employee unnecessary worry and upset, and in most cases, however, this moment is expected. Put here a checklist for termination. The employees leave your organization for good reasons and bad reasons. On the positive side, they find new opportunities, they might go back to school, retire, or land their dream job. Less positively, they are fired for poor performance or poor attendance or experience a layoff because of business downturn. In each instance, you need an employment termination checklist to help your employee exit process go smoothly. Here are some things that you should include on your checklist. Make sure to notify Human Resources if you're in a larger clinic. Make sure you have a written resignation letter. Notify your IT or remove permissions and access to any software, practice management systems, EMR, etc. Make sure they return any company property that includes keys or phones or pagers or things like that. Make sure that you have all of their passwords, especially if they're in the billing department and let's say they're working on claims and they have specific passwords or usernames for those particular insurance companies. You're going to have to notify the insurance companies that they're no longer employed because it could be a HIPAA violation if they gain access to it upon their departure from your clinic. Status of benefits, repayment of advances, make sure that happens. Payment of any money owed employee, take a look at also their vacation time and any paid hours for their vacation time. And make sure that there's an exit interview. An exit interview is always a good idea so you can hear from the employee if there's some things that they want to share as well. If you have anyone that could benefit from this particular webcast or if you would like to play it back, you can go back to the www.prairiehealthmso.com, log on to Strategies of Success, and I have all of them listed there back from when I first started this series in September. It has also documents included here as well. We also have listed underneath the resource tab, there's an employee handbook if you don't have one in your office already, and other resources and forms that might be able to help you with your employees. I'll now open this up to questions. Thank you so much for participating today, and I hope you have a good day.